It was raining heavily when Ibrahim saw a girl being brutalized by strangers. Without hesitation, he advanced and chased these menacing delinquents. Once the situation calmed down, he turned to the young girl, Safiya, asking her what was wrong with her attackers. However, Safiya, her eyes full of contempt, kept silent. Disconcerted, Ibrahim resigned and walked away. He learned later that Safiya was known in the neighborhood as a prostitute. Every evening, from 5 p.m., she wandered the streets in search of customers. Life was paced by cigarettes, alcohol, and tariffs. She had spent so much time in this dark world that she seemed to have lost all connection with her emotions. The next day, Ibrahim came back and found Safiya in the same place, waiting for customers. He approached her and greeted her. Safiya, dismayed, said to him, "Yes, my love, it's 5,000 for everything." Perplexed, Ibrahim asked, 5,000 for what? She simply replied, "For everything you see here." Finally understanding the true nature of his job, he said to her, "I'm not interested, but I want to be your friend." She refused dryly, declaring, I don't need friends." Ibrahim went home, tormented by thoughts. How could such a young and beautiful girl have been so dark in the streets and this life of decay? None came to mind. Ibrahim, determined to help Safiya, had invited the young girl home by pretending to be a customer. Once there, Safiya began to behave as she did with all her customers, adopting a distant and disembodied facade. But Ibrahim interrupted her quickly by saying, "No need to play a role with me. I paid for your time, just to talk." Safiya raised a smile, surprised by his franchise. "I didn't come here to talk to you," she replied coldly. Ibrahim insisted, but without success. Frustrated by his attitude, Safiya got up to leave. Ibrahim wondered what could make a girl so distant, so disconnected from her emotions, so he decided to call his friend Bob to discuss the situation. Once Bob arrived, Ibrahim explained the situation in detail. Bob looked at him with disbelief and burst into laughter. "Ibrahim, have you gone mad? Are you interested in a girl of joy? It's a waste of time." Ibrahim shook his head, determined. "I don't know why, Bob, but something tells me that this girl needs help. There is something in her, something broken, and I want to try to help her." Bob sighed. "Boy, you're not an orphan. If she needs help, it's not your problem." Bob sighed. "Listen, Ibrahim, I know you have a big heart, but you can't save everyone. You have a promising career ahead of you. Why waste your time and energy on a girl like Safiya?" Ibrahim shook his head. "It's not a waste of time, Bob. There's something about her that I can't ignore. I know it may seem crazy, but I can't help but turn my back on someone who needs help." Bob looked at him with a skeptical look. "You can't save everyone, Ibrahim. Sometimes, it's better to focus on yourself. You have so much potential, so many possibilities. Don't waste everything trying to play the hero for a girl who may not even want to save." Ibrahim lowered his eyes for a moment, flinching at his friend's words. He knew that Bob might be right, that his life could be easier if he focused only on his career. But deep down, he knew that he couldn't ignore the misery he had seen in Safiya's eyes. Finally, Ibrahim looked up to look at Bob with determination. "I hear what you say, Bob, but I have to follow my heart on this one. No matter the obstacles, I can't ignore someone who needs help. I can't turn my back on this chance to make a difference, no matter how small it is." He sighed, realizing that nothing would change his friend's mind. "Well, I guess you've always been stubborn like a mule. Be careful, my friend. Sometimes, things don't go as we hope." Ibrahim smiled faintly. "I know, Bob, but I have to at least try." And with this determination anchored in his heart, Ibrahim embarked on a quest to help Safiya, knowing that the path would be full of obstacles, but ready to face all the challenges to offer a little light in the dark life of the young woman. Ibrahim, intrigued by the lack of results in his online research on Safiya, began to feel more and more frustrated. As a computer scientist working for a large company, he was used to finding information quickly and efficiently, but it seemed that Safiya was unreachable, as if she did not exist at all in the virtual world. Determined to unravel the mystery surrounding Safiya, Ibrahim decided to spend more time in the bars where she was used to going with her clients. Every evening, he sat down discreetly, observing with anger and impotence Safiya being mistreated by unscrupulous men. His heart was tightening at every gesture, but he kept his calm, knowing that he had to be patient and strategic to help Safiya. Meanwhile, Ibrahim's girlfriend, Sarah, began to worry about her prolonged absence and her late responses to his messages. After a week of silence and negligence, she decided to go home one evening at 7 p.m. to have an explanation. To her great surprise, she found no one at home but left an expressive message to Ibrahim, expressing her incomprehension and need for clarification. The next day, Ibrahim and Sarah made an appointment to discuss the situation. Ibrahim, aware of his mistake, apologized to Sarah, but she categorically refused, stating that she was not sincere. She expressed her disappointment and frustration at Ibrahim's distant attitude, making him understand that she could no longer tolerate this negligence. An animated discussion ensued between Ibrahim and Sarah, where the emotions were alive. Despite Ibrahim's explanations, Sarah eventually left the place, leaving Ibrahim alone with his regrets and confusion. He then realized that his actions had unexpected consequences, endangering his relationship with Lara and further distancing him from Safiya, the mysterious young woman who occupied his thoughts. And that's how Ibrahim found himself in the middle of a complete failure of emotions and situations, faced with difficult choices and unexpected repercussions in his quest to help Safiya and save his relationship with Lara. One day, Ibrahim behaved as usual to observe Safiya. As he watched her discreetly, he witnessed a disturbing scene, a man threatening Safiya, accusing her of not having respected an appointment and putting her on guard against the risk of losing everything if she persisted in her behavior. Ibrahim felt a surge of courage to invade her and stood up to protect Safiya, but the confrontation quickly turned into a fight. The men's friends, threatening to join the fight, beat Ibrahim to the point of leaving him unconscious, then fleeing. For the very first time, Safiya let her emotions show. Overwhelmed with remorse and compassion, she rushed him to the hospital. The doctors reassured Safiya by assuring her that Ibrahim would recover. When he regained consciousness, Ibrahim discovered Safiya by his side. She asked him boldly why he had intervened. Ibrahim, still grumpy, explained to him that he simply wanted to help her. Safiya, resolved, made him understand that his life did not look at him and that he had to focus on his own. Despite Safiya's sharp words, Ibrahim persisted, convinced that he could save her from this dangerous life. He made her notice that she did not seem comfortable in this job and that he was ready to help her change her mind. But Safiya remained inflexible, rejecting any assistance from Ibrahim. She warned him not to ever get involved in these affairs at the risk of compromising his own safety. Disappointed, she took leave, leaving Ibrahim alone with his thoughts and hopes disappointed. Despite Ibrahim's frustration at Safiya's persistent distance, he found a glimmer of hope in the gesture of compassion of the latter by bringing him to the hospital. He realized that behind Safiya's impenetrable facade was hiding a person with a good heart, perhaps trapped by the circumstances of life. And so Ibrahim found himself at the crossroads, determined to help Safiya despite her reluctance, while Safiya remained on guard, determined not to let anyone get too close to his secrets and his torments. Ibrahim's girlfriend, disappointed by his behavior in the last 2 weeks, decided to conduct research to understand why Ibrahim was neglecting her. She discovered that Ibrahim visited certain bars after work and often sat alone, which troubled her deeply. Sarah was also overwhelmed by learning this, thinking that Ibrahim had to encounter serious problems to get to these places for no apparent reason. Worried, Sarah called Ibrahim, who told her he was at the hospital. Without wasting a moment, she rushed to join him. Upon arrival, she was shocked to see Ibrahim bandaged and injured. Looking for explanations, she asked, "What happened, Ibrahim?" Ibrahim, looking sad, replied, "It's complicated, Sarah. A long story." Not wanting to wait, Sarah insisted, "I want to know the truth now. I was told that you frequented the bars in the neighborhood. This is not in your habits. Is it because of that you are there, in this state?" After a moment of silence, Ibrahim admitted, "Yes, it's true. I tried to calm a fight and I was attacked. It was not the plan, Sarah. I wanted to protect you from all this, Sarah." Eyes full of grief, asked with a trembling voice, "Why did you take this risk, Ibrahim? What was your mission in this bar?" Ibrahim looked at Sarah with affection and promised, "I will tell you everything in detail, I promise you. But know that everything I did was to protect those I love, even if it meant taking risks." Sarah was angry and said, "You are used to telling me everything. Why did you hide all this from me from the start?" Ibrahim replied, "Sorry, my love, I don't know what's happening to me." Sarah, seeing Ibrahim's condition, decided to shut up and wait for him to recover. Meanwhile, the doctor arrived and announced, "Your condition has improved, and the good news is that you can go home and come back from time to time for consultations." Ibrahim and Sarah were proud of this news, and Sarah decided to accompany him home. They prepared a delicious meal for him and spent the night together at Ibrahim's. Meanwhile, his daughter, on her side, could not work that night. She was locked up at home, wondering why this man was worried about her. Upset, she told herself that she did not deserve such treatment, that she was not worthy of it. In a moment of weakness, her daughter began to drink whiskey to quench her emotions, afraid of appearing weak. She continued to drink until she was completely drunk, falling asleep in a state of intoxication, and this is how the fates of Sarah, Ibrahim, and her daughter took unexpected paths, where the torments of the heart and mind pushed them to face their own inner demons. Everyone should find the strength and courage to overcome the trials that awaited them in order to discover the truth, forgiveness, and healing. The next day, her daughter felt a strong desire to hear from Ibrahim, but her pride prevented her. Returning to work that evening, her clients were happy to see her again, but something troubled her mind. She wondered if Ibrahim had left the hospital, but was surprised to find that she was already compatible for him. Returning, she told herself that it was she who was already thinking too much and decided to focus on her clients. As she had not worked the day before, many people asked for her services. Meanwhile, at Ibrahim's, calm reigned. Sarah had spent the night and was really taking care of him. Ibrahim, in convalescence, did not leave to work, but around 7 p.m., he said to Sarah, "My love, I'm going out for a bit, I'm coming." Sarah sighed and said to him, "Do not move from here." Ibrahim asked why, and Sarah replied, "Because you never told me what you are going to do often in bars every evening, and now you want me to accept that you go there one more time." Ibrahim replied, "But, my love, I did not tell you that I will tell you everything." Sarah then said, "Of course, but before you tell me, I will prevent you from going back there, at least for your safety." Ibrahim, shocked, sat on the couch and said, "I'm going to see a woman." Sarah, surprised, asked which woman, accusing Ibrahim of having another woman outside of her. Ibrahim replied that it was only a woman who needed help. Sarah then asked what kind of help it was. Ibrahim explained, "I met this woman one day when she was being brutalized by individuals. It deeply touched me, and as I approached her, I discovered that she was a prostitute." Sarah remained speechless before Ibrahim's revelations. How could he care about a prostitute to the point of risking his life for her? She was disappointed that she had not been informed earlier of this situation. Ibrahim, seeing her expression, tried to justify himself by explaining, "Sarah, you don't know her. She is actually a good woman deep down. She took me to the hospital that night and made sure I was fine. She doesn't deserve to be in this situation." Sarah, however, was skeptical. "How can you be so naive, Ibrahim?" she asked. "Prostitutes are not angels. They have chosen their path." Ibrahim, sincere in his motivations, tried to convince Sarah of the goodness of this girl in distress. He added, maybe she found herself in this business by mistake, that she had experienced the misfortunes that pushed her down this path. "She needs help, Sarah, and I can't sit idly by." Sarah, shared between compassion for the suffering of this woman and anger towards Ibrahim for hiding this relationship, tried to understand. Sarah, alone in her corner, was thinking intensely. "He must be in love with this woman," she said. "How is this possible? I have to do something to stop him." She decided to visit her friend Mariama to explain the situation to him. At Mariama, Sarah, visibly troubled, told everything that had happened with Ibrahim and his daughter. "You don't believe what he told me, Mariama. He wants to help you, this whore." "I think he's in love with her," Sarah said, her eyes full of tears. Mariama, shocked, replied, "It's incredible. You can't let him leave you for her. You have to do everything to keep him." "But how? What can I do?" Sarah asked, desperate. Mariama thought for a moment, then murmured, "Sarah, I know people who could help you get this woman out of your life." Sarah looked at her, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "Not very recommendable damage, but effective. He could give her a warning bomb so she'd leave Ibrahim alone," Mariama explained. "Do you really think that's a good idea?" asked Sarah, hesitant. "If you want to keep him, you don't have a choice." "Here are some numbers," said Mariama, hearing a list from Sarah. Back at her house, Farah hesitated a moment before calling one of the numbers. A hoarse voice answered at the other end of the line. "Yes," said the voice. "Hello, she gave me your number." "I need help with a problem," said Sarah nervously. "What kind of problem?" asked the voice. "I want you to get a woman away from my man," said Sarah. The voice seemed to think for a moment before answering. "Meeting at the abandoned warehouse behind the station. This evening at 10 p.m. Sarah picked up and hung up. She got ready, her heart beating wildly. At the time, she went to the indicated place. There, she saw a man wearing a hood. "Good evening," she said, trying to sound calm. "Good evening, madam." "Explain the situation to me," said the man in the hood. "My fiancé is falling in love with a prostitute. I want you to get her away from him, get her out of his life," said Sarah, the trembling voice. The man in the hood nodded. "Consider it done, madam. But this kind of service has a cost." "How much will it cost me?" asked Sarah, nervous. "1,000,000 francs," said the man without hesitation. Sarah nodded. "I'm sending you 500,000 francs now. Once it's done, I'll send you the rest." The man in the hood thought for a moment before answering. "Okay, madam. I'm waiting for your initial transfer to start." Sarah took out her phone and made the transfer. "It's done," she said. "Perfect. You will receive news soon," replied the man in the hood before disappearing into darkness. Sarah went back home, her heart heavy but determined. She knew that what she was doing was risky and immoral, but she saw no other way to save her relationship with Ibrahim. The next day, Sarah was tense. Every phone ring made her jump. Finally, in the afternoon, she received a message. It was in progress. "Stay calm and wait." She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Meanwhile, her daughter, troubled by recent events, wondered if Ibrahim had recovered from his injuries. She felt inexplicably concerned about her fate, despite her attempts to stay away. In the evening, as usual, her daughter went out to work. 3 suspicious men approached her, reluctant to buy her services. How much for an entire evening at home? One of them asked, a sinister smile on his lips. His daughter, suspicious, replied, you have to pay in advance, and it will be a large sum. No problem, said another man, taking out a bunch of bills. Let's go. Her daughter entered their vehicle, not suspecting that Ibrahim was watching the scene from a dark corner of the bar. Sitting in the car, she felt a palpable tension and a strange atmosphere. However, she remained calm. After a long journey, they arrived at a remote and dark place. The men took her out of the car and began to beat her brutally. You must leave this city immediately and never see Ibrahim again, one of them groaned. I don't know this Ibrahim, his daughter screamed, terrified. But the men continued to threaten her and beat her mercilessly. One after another, she ended up being severely injured, unable to stand up because of an intense leg pain. She stood on the ground, asking for help, when Ibrahim, who had followed them from the bar, suddenly appeared. What's going on here? Asked Ibrahim, his voice trembling with anger. His daughter, in tears, replied, they told me not to approach Ibrahim anymore. I told them I didn't know this Ibrahim. Ibrahim remained silent for a moment before murmuring, was it me he was talking about? I have no idea, his daughter muttered. Ibrahim wanted to lift her up to put her in his car, but his daughter, suspicious, protested, don't touch me. I have to take care of you. You need help, Ibrahim insisted. His daughter tried to get up, but the pain was too intense. Finally, she accepted his help. Ibrahim carried her gently and put her in his car, then quickly headed to a private clinic. On the way, Ibrahim looked at his daughter, whose face was covered with tears and blood. Well done, his daughter. We're almost there, he murmured, trying to reassure her despite the anxiety that surrounded him. Once in the clinic, his daughter received care. For the first time, she felt vulnerable. She turned her head to Ibrahim and said, can you go? I'm going out on my own. Never in my life. I'm not going to leave you here, Ibrahim said firmly. He added, I have the impression that this Ibrahim the attackers were talking about, it was me. But I have to find out who sent them. It's not my problem, his daughter muttered. I'm used to problems. I'm not afraid of anything, and I'm not going to respect what they tell me. No, it could hurt you even more, Ibrahim replied, worried. I know, but what's the point? What's the point, anyway? His daughter looked away, her face marked by pain and resignation. Ibrahim stared at her intensely. What could have happened to you in life to make you so desperate? It's not your problem, she replied coldly. Meanwhile, the attackers contacted Zara to inform her of the success of their mission. Hello, Zara, said one of the men. Yes, it's me. It's done, asked Zara, impatient. Yes, the girl understood the message. She should no longer approach Ibrahim, he replied with confidence. Perfect. I'll send you the rest of the money right away. Make sure she leaves the city for good, added Zara. Do not worry, madam. She understood. No one wants to end up in such a situation again, he said, lightly laughing. Very well. The money has been transferred, Zara confirmed before hanging up. After the care, Ibrahim tried to convince his daughter not to return to his neighborhood. You could have serious problems. These people could come back, he insisted. After several tense exchanges, his daughter eventually gave in. Ibrahim took her away from this neighborhood to one of its residences located on the other side of the city, more than 15 kilometers away. They spent the night together, but his daughter remained silent, refusing to speak of herself despite all Ibrahim's efforts to understand his past and the reasons that had pushed him to become a prostitute. Ibrahim, I appreciate what you're doing, but I don't want to talk about my past, she said, with a trembling voice. I just want to understand and help you, replied Ibrahim gently. You deserve better than this life. His daughter looked at him with eyes full of pain. Maybe, but there are things that I prefer to keep to myself. You can't understand. I'm ready to try, Ibrahim insisted. His daughter sighed. I know, but I'm not ready to share all this. Not yet. Ibrahim nodded, respecting his wish. Okay, but know that I am here, and that I will not let you down. The silence settled between them, a silence full of unspoken and pain. His daughter went to bed, and for the first time in a long time, she felt safe, even though the shadows of her past continued to haunt her. Ibrahim went to work normally, but after his office hours, he made a detour to the residence where he hosted his daughter to hear from her before returning home around 8 p.m. Sarah, on the other hand, was overwhelmed. She didn't understand why, despite the fact that she had driven her daughter away to the point of no longer seeing her in the streets and bars, her fiancé Ibrahim was always late and was very unavailable. One evening, Sarah decided to pay him a visit. Once at home, she noticed Ibrahim's absence. She waited until 10 p.m. and finally, Ibrahim arrived. They had a discussion. Why are you back so late, Ibrahim? Asked Sarah, his treacherous tone, his concern and his frustration. Ibrahim, unable to tell her the truth since he had not yet found who had sent the attackers, replied, I had a job to do far from the city. Sarah, although pretending to believe it, knew that something was wrong with their couple. She decided to change the subject, not wanting to aggravate the situation. Meanwhile, Ibrahim continued his research to discover who had sent the attackers. The next day, he took a break at the office and went to the streets where his daughter was used to hanging out. He questioned people, offering them money in exchange for reliable information, but to no avail. At the end of the day, he went to see his daughter and explained everything to her. His daughter, however, did not really listen to him. Ibrahim then asked him, Do you have a problem? Yes, she replied dryly. Tell me what problem you have, I will solve it, he insisted. His daughter looked at him with challenge. I need 2 things, whiskey and cigarettes. Since I've been here, you make me drink water and eat weird food. My body needs something else. As long as you are under my protection, you will not take these substances, Ibrahim replied firmly. His daughter was angry, tears in her eyes. Feeling vulnerable without these substances, she began to cry. Ibrahim hired someone to watch the apartment, bring food to his daughter, and assist her. He gave strict instructions to this assistant, no alcohol, no cigarettes. His daughter's anger went up a notch. She broke everything that was at her door and said, I will not eat anything until you give me what I want. She started a hunger strike. The next day, Ibrahim called the guardian to find out if she had eaten. No, the guardian replied. Do not give in to his blackmail, Ibrahim exhorted. The guardian continued to bring him food at precise times, despite his refusal to eat. After 36 hours of hunger strike, his daughter eventually gave in and ate. However, her hatred for Ibrahim grew. When he came to the residence, she refused to speak to him or listen to him. Deprived of harmful substances, his daughter began to feel emotions that she had long fled. Without these anesthetics, she remembered her painful past, which made her cry often. Ibrahim, although saddened by his state, remained determined to help her, hoping that one day she could see things differently. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel to be informed first when publishing new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I wish you an excellent day.